putting the brakes on negative self-talk. Years ago, my negative self-talk was ruining my life. I read lots of books on what to say to myself and how to say it, and still, the negative thoughts kept pouring through my mind all day long. If I made a mistake, negative thought. If I was late for an appointment, negative thought. If I gave my word and broke it, negative thought. And not just one or two negative thoughts for everything I did. They would overtake my mind for hours and hours. If this happens to you and you want to put the brakes on your negative self-talk, stay with me as I share what I taught myself and others to do as well.
Welcome to the Living Beyond ADHD podcast. If you're looking for a fresh perspective and actionable steps on hot topics from focus to follow-through to self-management and more, you are in the right place. Welcome your host, innovative educator, coach, and psychotherapist, Dr. B.
You may not know if being free of negative self-talk is going to be right for you. You may not know if you're going to be so happy with your newfound freedom that you'll have to email me and tell me about it. You may not know if this transformation is going to be really fun and exciting. And if it's not as wonderful as others have experienced and you want your previous negative self-talk life back, you can just recreate that life again. Although you may want to give your newfound freedom a little time before you decide. I firmly believe that the little girl I once was still lives inside of me. She's the keeper of my passion, playfulness, curiosity, and overall Energizer Bunny energy. And she's just absolutely amazing. And yet there were many, many times that I was abusing her with my words, thoughts, actions, and reactions to life events. I would speak to her with disgust in my voice and blame her constantly for bad outcomes. One day when I was having a field day with my negative self-talk, I realized that I'd hit the wall and I just couldn't stand it anymore. But I didn't know how to stop it. The books hadn't helped, the professionals hadn't helped. So I got quiet and I went inside myself, and then I knew what to do. I needed to confront myself. I went into the bathroom, I stood in front of the mirror, and I looked myself in the eyes, eyeball to eyeball, and I made myself say out loud exactly what I was saying to myself in the privacy of my own mind. It was horrible. As I continued to look myself in the eyes, I saw beyond what I typically see. I saw that little girl inside of me in such pain for what she heard me saying. It was heartbreaking. And if that wasn't enough to shift my way of speaking to myself, I went and I got a photo of my little girl when she was about 3 or 4 years old, and I held that photo in my hand, and I continued the conversation with her. I told her that I didn't care if I was hurting her. I wanted what I wanted, and if it was hurtful to her, then so be it. Again, it was an awful experience. And since I don't leave things to chance, I then imagined that I was speaking to a real little girl aged 3 or 4, standing in front of me, saying those words to her. And I choked and I couldn't speak. And I burst into tears. I was abusing her. I didn't think of myself as an abuser, and yet I was in that moment and many prior moments. I was as abusive to that little girl as I was abusive to myself, my adult self. I was thinking it didn't matter what I was saying or doing to myself because I could take it. In that moment, I realized that the abusive voice I had taken on wasn't mine. It was a voice I grew up with. It was a dialogue that I was familiar with. It was punitive and cruel and seemingly had no love in it for me at all. This is what that voice sounded like and felt like to me. Whether it truly was or wasn't doesn't matter, because I know that we all create our own reality and our own narratives about the events of our lives, and that was mine. Those were people who were supposed to love me and protect me and care for me, and it didn't feel like they did. And since they spoke to me as they did, I felt I could speak to myself that way as well. Little did I know back then the part I played in that reality that I created. Was I going to continue the abuse or put a stop to it immediately? The decision was clear. Putting the brakes on the negative self-talk must happen immediately. Not another word to be uttered with such cruelty and disrespect for my little girl. Instead, she became the focus of my attention. I used my executive function skills of metacognition, inhibiting, shifting, emotional control, and self-monitoring to change my relationship with my little girl. I learned to shower her with love and kindness, and I made self-care a top priority. My intentions always considered her and what was for her highest good. This is where the healing of my relationship with myself, my younger self, started. I forced myself to tell the truth to myself and confront my abusiveness and stop it. From there, I started to rebuild trust between my adult self and my little girl self, because obviously she didn't trust me. Why should she, after all the abuse I heaped on her? Gradually, she began to trust me, and one day we negotiated how we would coexist moving forward. We discussed what she needed and what I needed so that both our needs could be met. I say that because I think of this physical body that we live in as a timeshare, a space that we both live in and need to share the care and the responsibilities for. The result of our negotiation was that she gets her needs met first, every single day. The first 3 hours of the day are for her, no matter what. And then an hour at the end of the day before bedtime is hers as well. She shares her evening hour with me and Pink because she loves Pink as much as I do. I coexist today in my timeshare with my little girl, and my living amends to her remains a top priority. She gets the first 3 hours of every day and the final hour in the evening before it's time to sleep for 8 hours. That's 50% of each day given to sleep and my little girl. The rest of each day is for everything else. And since I've stopped abusing her, life is good. It's fun, exciting, structured as needed, and self-integrity leads. What I commit to my adult self and my child self remains non-negotiable. My word is all that I have, and it must remain sacred. This renewed relationship with myself makes decision-making easy, choices obvious, and life free of drama for the most part. For those of you who want the steps to take to get started on your own journey away from negative self-talk, stay tuned. Since self-talk is part of being human, mine is positive, encouraging, and empowering. I have learned to offer myself grace and have replaced conditional love with unconditional love for myself. I learned some great lessons watching the Ryan Reynolds movie, School of Life. In the basketball scenes, the players and the spectators cheered if the team missed a throw, made a basket, the other team made a basket, a team member lost the ball, etc. People cheered no matter what. It took the edge off of the need to win the game, and instead they played to have a good time and do their best. Over time, this attitude resulted in them winning games and eventually the championship. I imagine their self-talk used to be very negative and punishing as well as punishing to their team members. With an amazing coach, they turned it around and talk to themselves with pride and appreciation. They would check in and ask, "Are we doing our best?" And when the answer was a resounding yes, they cheered, "Great!" So what lessons did I take from that movie? To not take life so seriously, to celebrate my wins when I'm doing my best. It may not be the best that I've ever done. However, it's the best for that day or that situation, and hence it's my best. So what's the negative self-talk that you are abusing yourself with? And are you ready to stop it now? I hope so, because if you continue to abuse yourself, you must still want or need to receive that abuse for whatever reason. If we were chatting and you told me that this is just how you are and you've been most of your life, I'd say, great. And you weren't born this way. You can change if you're ready to change. We are definitely as limited as we make up our minds to be. We have so many limiting beliefs that are stored in our minds as facts when they aren't facts. They're limiting beliefs. If something isn't 100% true, then it's a belief, not a fact, and most likely a limiting belief. We need to identify them, challenge them, disprove them, and shift them to beliefs that are empowering of us now. Remember, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. If you aren't yet a member of my Facebook group, Living Beyond ADHD, I highly recommend that you get over there and ask to join. And if you follow the steps, you'll be approved more quickly than if you don't. The steps are: ask to join, answer the few questions that you're asked, including the question about the group rules. We have rules so the group is a safe space, free of judgment, and a place where you can show up and interact with like-minded adults. You can laugh a little, learn a little, and most of all, be connected to a positive energy community. Approvals are done 1 to 2 times a week, so please be patient. I now go live in that group every Friday at different times each week, and I answer questions posed by group members from the weekly post for the live Q&A sessions. It's definitely worth joining us to get your questions answered, unless you have all the answers you want. Since everyone joining the group wants to develop their executive function skills or get accurate information about executive function skills and ADHD, I have lots of free resources on my website at drbarbaracohen.com, as well as provide great posts in the group and the weekly live Q&A to support your needs. And if you're interested in learning more about the development of your executive function skills, you can join the Adventures in Achievement waitlist for January 2022. Getting on the waitlist does not obligate you to join the program. It simply provides you with information about executive function skills and how the program facilitates you developing yours so that you no longer have limitations on what you can or can't do. It's an immersive, experiential 7-month program to help you transform your life. For those of you who have been longtime listeners, you know I'm big on wins and their importance in your life. There's another important aspect to focusing on wins, and that is that you're training your mind for consistency. Every day to notice what's right with you, right with what you're doing, and right in the world. In other words, wins. And especially during a time in our world history when it would be easy to ignore what's right or good or amazing. This is exactly what we all need to be focusing on to keep the level of positives within us high, so it can offset the high level of negatives that we're bombarded with every day. A wins mindset is proactively looking for and celebrating your wins. It will transform how you experience your life if you let it, even during very challenging times like now. How you experience your life and the meanings that you give the events of your life contribute greatly to the quality of your life. We don't always have control over the events or experiences. However, we do have control over the meaning that we give them. You are a precious child of God and the universe, and are called a human being, not a human doing, for good reason. You don't have to earn your value. You were born with it. Your value comes from who you are, not what you do. And if you need a place to know that this is true, be sure to join the Facebook group Living Beyond ADHD so you can be with others who will celebrate your wins with you and affirm that you are more than okay as you, the human being. So what's it going to be for you today? If you posted a question in the Facebook group to be answered on the Friday live Q&A, that's great. If you've stayed engaged in the content and with the community of the Facebook group, that's an awesome win. And if you've decided to stop buying the lies that there is nothing you can do to dramatically change the quality of your life, that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you. You get the point. Celebrate all of them. And none of this half-hearted celebrating. You've got to mean it. You've got to exaggerate your emotions. Yes, wow, awesome. Be sure to celebrate your wins, big and small, because celebrating daily builds consistency and makes a faster difference in your life. How much time do we have? Not much. So let's get to it.
This podcast is sponsored by Pure Potential with Dr. B. You can head over to drbarbaracohen.com and find the podcast episodes and transcripts. Great free content, plus information on programs and products, including the groundbreaking online Adventures in Achievement Foundational Skills Training and Coaching Program. You can also learn about Dr. B's masterclasses on decision-making, time management, and banishing procrastination. That's drbarbaracohen.com.
So back to putting the brakes on your negative self-talk and specific steps that you can take. I'm wondering if you'll start doing your inventory of negative self-talk while you listen to this episode, or if you'll need to pause the episode so that you can focus on your inventory. You could do both, since you have free will. You could even sleep on it and then write your inventory the next day, by letting the examples of negative self-talk arise more easily. Whichever way you've decided to inventory your negative self-talk, it's up to you. What I'm curious about is, what are you specifically saying to yourself? That's your first step. Inventory what you're specifically saying to yourself. Next, I wouldn't tell you to believe that it's not your voice berating you, because you might think to yourself, whose voice would it be then, Dr. B, if it's not my voice? It's in your mind and it's speaking to you, so it must be your voice. I understand your conviction, and yet many of my students have come to realize that those cruel voices speaking to them aren't theirs. They belong to people from years earlier. This is your second step, determining the source of the voice or voices. The third step is determining what will get you to stop speaking to yourself this way. As you draw from my story earlier in the episode, I'm wondering if you'll want to evict the internal voice that's not yours, or not. Eventually, you'll realize how long you've been working on stopping the negative self-talk without success, and consider an eviction notice, since you can't heal what's not real, and if it's not your voice, you can't heal the issue, you can only evict. And if you decide against eviction because it's not the right strategy, I wonder what strategies you'll use to resolve this self-abuse. Perhaps go back and listen to the strategies that I used to resolve this for myself and see which ones appeal to you. Perhaps all of them do, because you want to be thorough. This is the fourth step. There you have it. 4 steps to freedom, if you're ready to be free of your abusive, negative self-talk. Who will you be without this negative self-talk? If you've lived with it for so long, you might feel loyal to it and feel strange about the idea of releasing it or even transforming it into empowering self-talk. I want you all to know that there is real hope for resolving the challenges that you're experiencing with negative self-talk, and that you can put this abusive way of life behind you, just like I did. The widespread needless suffering of millions of adults around the world has to stop, and I'm doing what I can to stop it with this generation, with us. We all need to address so much of the negativity that we've been indoctrinated with, as well as further develop our underdeveloped executive function skills if we want to live the life that's possible for us with those changes. We have to be the person who lives the life we say we want, not struggle to live the life we say we want, so we can become that person someday who has that life. That's totally backwards thinking. I learned that even with all the content knowledge developed to bring my program to the world years earlier, I hadn't developed into the person that I needed to be to start this mental wellness transformation movement. I learned that the anonymous quote that I found years ago was absolutely true. Set a goal so big that you can't achieve it until you grow into the person who can. What about you? Do you keep pushing for your goal and not achieving it because you haven't yet grown into the person who can achieve it? This journey is an inside job, and the sooner that we all realize that fact, the sooner we can achieve our important goals. Seek to be the person first, and then you can do what needs doing to achieve your success. To think otherwise will cost us dearly. Your life is full of clues about what's missing or what needs your attention. So slow down and become a student of your own life. Study yourself, who you are today and who you need to be to do what you want to do. Understand what you need to succeed with the multifaceted brain that you have. Take action on what you learn about yourself. This is the life work that lies ahead for you, if this is your time. You came to this lifetime with an amazing gift. Everyone did. Your piece of the jigsaw puzzle to complete the picture of how the world can be. I would love it if each and every person on this planet were able to express his or her unique gifts freely, without the threat of being shamed or criticized. What a world that would be. Let's put an end to the stigma once and for all and become who we are destined to be, so we can do what we're destined to do for ourselves and for others. A favorite quote of mine. Lisa Hayes said, "Be careful how you talk to yourself because you're always listening." What this quote says to me is that the many parts of myself are always listening, that they are each sensitive to something I say, whether it's encouraging or abusive. And since I never know who's listening at any given time, and I'm 100% responsible 100% of the time for what I say to myself, it's up to me to do what I can to evict the negative and feed the positive in everything that I will be and do. So I ask myself daily, how can I? And I do that. Whether you're learning from my podcast episodes or Facebook Live videos, or you're working with me directly, you're in my world and I'm here to serve your needs. Be sure to reach out and get your needs met. It's up to you to take action so that things can change for the better for you. And they can only change for the better for you if you change. Like Jim Rohn said, I can't do your push-ups for you. However, I can show you how to get the most out of doing them. The same is true with your magnificent mind. Make it a priority to join the Facebook group and answer the questions asked of you so you can have a non-judgmental community to lean into. Put yourself on the wait list for the Adventures in Achievement Foundational Skills program so that you receive all the amazing emails we've written to both educate you about executive function skills as well as the details of the program. There's absolutely no obligation by being on the wait list, and you'll thank yourself for getting informed. There's nothing to enroll in until January 2022, so you have plenty of time to learn about your executive function skills and their development, as well as how that happens in the program. And if you're on the wait list, you hear about transformations that are happening for students in such a short period of time, such as this excerpt. I found Dr. B's foundational skills absolutely life-changing. Dr. B brings rare, raw, real, deeply personal executive functioning stories and life experiences from her own life to her work. This brings a marvelous level of, I really do know what it's like, and I really do know the struggles that you're having. If you enjoyed today's episode or any of the other episodes, please share this podcast show with others. I would also be grateful if you'd rate the show and write a positive or inspiring review on iTunes so I know that I'm meeting your needs. It means a lot to me to know that your life is getting a little bit better every time we get together. And be sure to check out the show notes for the many opportunities available to you, as well as ways that we can work together and stop your needless suffering now. You'll find real solutions to the challenges that you're experiencing, whether that's in my free resources or the 3 amazing master classes or the Adventures in Achievement Foundational Skills program. I would love to help you realize a new freedom. That is, if that's of interest to you. Thanks for listening. Until the next time, bye for now.
Thanks so much for listening today. If you're eager to make positive changes in your life and stop overwhelm and confusion from derailing you, head over to drbarbaracohen.com and see how Dr. B can help you today. Whether you love learning in an online group environment with personalized coaching or prefer the pace of guided self-study, Dr. B offers the skills, strategies, and individual support you need. Get started on your journey today by visiting the website at drbarbaracohen.com.